Hi everyone, Quiveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are going to continue looking at the coming month of August. We're going to take a look more at the stars, the constellations, and how they're going to change, but we are also going to take a look at the greatest elongations of Mercury and Venus from more favorable locations. If you remember from the previous videos, the elongations of Mercury and Venus aren't going to look fantastic from here in Ireland, but they will look better from other places. And the month of August is jam-packed, there's lots happening. So if you didn't catch the last video, I urge you to take a look. We're looking here at a city sky with the close to full moon. If we take a look at the percentages here, yes, 82%, so quite full, not 100% full, but still quite bright. And I feel like I'm seeing slightly too many stars. So let's increase the light pollution just a little bit. This is a little bit more realistic for what we might see in Cork City. We're still seeing a little bit of light over in the west because we're so early in August, but it won't be long before this twilight glow disappears from our sky at nighttime. We can see Bootes, or at least we can see Arcturus, part of Bootes just down here, getting quite low to the west. Scorpius is also getting towards the southwest, and Sagittarius is now due south just before we come up to midnight. If we push ahead to midnight, Scorpius will be pretty much setting. Antares there at least is below the horizon. We can see that Sagittarius is already past due south, and the summer triangle is still in the zenith of the sky. If we move forward, we'll see the summer triangle is still there, disappearing in the morning. It hasn't yet vanished from view before sunrise. So this early in August, it is still considered summer according to the summer triangle. If we move forward later into August, of course, the sunset will be getting later, so the sky will be darker until a later time. We can see here at 5:15, it's still quite dark here once we're through to the end of August, and there is the summer triangle setting before the sun rises. That is our sign that we are out of summer according to this astronomical teller of the time. We'll move back a little bit into darkness and come back a little bit closer to the beginning of the month. We can see the moon there passing by Saturn and then Mars, not particularly close conjunctions. We can see the square of Pegasus is now nice and high in the sky here in the morning, clearly above Saturn, and we are getting back some of those wintertime constellations like Gemini and Orion. If we move back later in August again, here we have Orion above the horizon before the sun rises, clearly observable here at just about 5 o'clock. And we have Gemini clearly above the horizon as well, with Jupiter also returning to the sky in the morning. So we're definitely getting back those wintertime constellations once we get through to the end of the month. We're going to lose the summer triangle before sunrise once we're through to the end of the month, and these are all signs that we are getting back into winter time. Taking a look at the early evening sky, early in the night, just as we come towards the end of the month, we will bring back the sun just to get everything as early as possible. So we're still seeing a little bit of Scorpius and Sagittarius there as the sky gets dark, but not for very long. This means the core of the Milky Way is already going to be dropping down into the southwest at just 10 o'clock. Of course, we're not going to see that in the city, so we will head out to the countryside, and we're barely seeing it here. There's still a little bit of light from the sun. The moon is there, quite bright. If we move a little bit later, we can see it a little bit better, and if we move a few days ahead, the moon gets out of the way. So here we are at just a little bit past 10 o'clock. We're after moving into September, and that means the Milky Way is getting under the horizon. The core of the Milky Way is getting under the horizon. We'll come back into August, which of course brings the moon into the sky and makes things more difficult to see. And you can see as we come back towards the beginning of August, we have to wait until much later before the sky is dark enough for the Milky Way to even be visible. But here early in August, we're here on the 9th, it is still very nice and clear in the sky. You can see the core of the Milky Way early in the evening rather than having to wait until morning time, and the sky is actually getting dark. This little glow is mostly because we're not quite at midnight. It may be an artifact of stellarium. If we move forward, that light is definitely gone and the Milky Way is still there stretching across the sky. So it is a great time of the year to look for the Milky Way, which in all honesty, is something that looks a little bit better from lower latitudes as well, just like the greatest elongation of Venus on the 15th. We can see here as we move forward, Venus does get brighter, but it's getting much lower in the sky. From the countryside, we will be able to see Venus for a little bit longer because there's no light pollution. But of course, with light pollution complicating matters, we're not going to see much of Venus at its greatest elongation. It's appearing in the sky. Well, as you can see here, it's appearing in the sky at about the height of a telephone pole. So if you have any, or an electricity pole maybe, if you have any buildings or structures around you that are taller than that towards the west, they're going to pretty much obscure Venus from view unless you are at a location high enough to look over them. That's one of the benefits of living in a tall building. You can see over some of the buildings around you and get a slightly better view of the sky. The roof of a tall building, of course, is good for that as well, but do be careful. We will move down to lower latitudes. We'll start by moving just to the south of Europe here, down towards Spain. That's already going to bring us closer to the equator, and we can see Venus here in much greater darkness. But we can also see when Venus first appears, even with light pollution, it's significantly higher in the sky, at least twice, if not 3 times higher in the sky. We're looking at Venus here at its greatest elongation. We can see Venus is higher if we move back when Venus was closer to the sun. If we move forward, as Venus comes around the front of the sun, it gets much brighter, and it's visible at that much increased brightness for far longer when we're this much closer to the equator. We'll move back firstly towards morning time and then towards the beginning of the month in order to get back to Mercury's greatest elongation. So here we are on the 2nd. Mercury is always a difficult planet to spot, but its greatest elongation gives us one of the best opportunities. And there it is, quite high in the sky, just disappearing really by about 4:30 now that we're closer to the equator. Quite visible in a fair level of darkness here at just about 4 o'clock in the morning. We'll move forward to the 15th again. You may remember from the previous video that even from Ireland, Mercury and Jupiter had a fairly close conjunction here on the morning of the 15th. We're still only seeing them quite low in the sky, but we are able to see them with a slightly greater level of darkness. This conjunction between Mercury and Jupiter, it does seem like the kind of thing that will look much better from closer to the equator, but we can see Mercury, Jupiter, and some of Jupiter's moons here in a fairly small field of view. So just to double check, we'll grab Jupiter to start with. We're using quite a big, powerful telescope, which is actually limiting our view. A big, powerful telescope will give you a great close-up of a particular area. We'll pause time, and I'll see. It does look like Jupiter's moons, at least one of them, and Mercury are visible there in the same field of view. With a real telescope, you would have a greater degree of flexibility because you would be able to focus on things in the exact center and try to see Mercury and Jupiter slightly to the sides. But it looks like you would need a very precise level of magnification. Here we go. A Meade ETX 80 with a 14mm plus lens. That's just about showing us some of Jupiter's moons and Mercury at the same time. Of course, in reality, the Earth is turning, so they will drift across your field of view and you'll need to adjust to keep them visible. So just before we finish up, we will go towards the equator, much closer to the equator, not all the way to the equator, but much closer to the equator, just to get a no doubt better view of those conjunctions. So here we are much closer to the equator, and there's Mercury and Jupiter. Again, they're still very close to the sun, even though we're much closer to the equator and the angle of the ecliptic is more favorable. They're still a little bit tricky to see, even at that conjunction. Moving back to Mercury's greatest elongation, however, and it's significantly higher in the sky, and it's visible with a really good level of darkness. A little low in the sky, but still better than the view we would get here in Ireland or even in Spain. Moving back towards evening time, back towards sunset, and then back to the 15th, we will see Venus's greatest elongation and see how that appears. So we can see Venus nice and high in a great level of darkness, but when it appears first in the sky just as the sun is going down, we can see that it is nice and high. And of course, as Venus comes around in front of the sun and gets brighter, we can see it staying much, much higher for much, much longer than it did for Spain. And there we go, Mercury and Venus passing each other way forward, months into the future in October, and it's all visible from the equator. We're looking at it here from Africa, but anywhere near the equator will give you a similar view. So there's the greatest elongation on the 15th. And those events do look a little bit better from lower latitudes. There is a good chance that the Perseid meteor shower will look better, not so much from different latitudes, but from a different longitude, which is something we're going to take a look at in an upcoming video. But until then, I hope that you enjoyed viewing these planetary elongations from better locations, and I hope you get to see them in real life, regardless of what location you're in. If you enjoyed this video, then please do like it. If you like this kind of content, then please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you would like to read this information, you can do so on my website, queevinscontent.ie. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you back here next time.